When you're not being utilized as a dog handler, you're basically babysitting a dog while everybody else has fun clearing and doing the cool guy stuff. So not a lot of guys want to be a dog handler, but I remember being in the team room and somebody's like, hey, raise your hand if a dog's ever saved your life, and everybody's hand went up. I wanted to go on every mission, and I learned that if I made myself as valuable as possible, I'm not going to be stuck back home. I'm going to go on every mission, and that's what I'm there to do. Going to get through the training and selection to get to Dev Group, you shoot a lot. The most I've ever shot in my life. And I was top of the class. I felt pretty good. I was like, yeah, I've been shooting pretty hard, and I show up in my team, and I'm like, all right, let's see what everybody's got. And I'm like, I'm just gonna win this. I'm just gonna win this just so the guys know who I am, and it's fine. Here's my ego. Everybody look at it. And I got crushed day one. And I'm like, okay, I'll shut up. You're nobody. There's always somebody better than you, no matter how good you think you are. There's always somebody better. It's cool to see that such a bad situation, training that you put in is like how you're going to act in the real world, and just to see that all the training that we had put in and the hours, the countless hours, paid off. I don't even have his gear off yet. I made my way to Cairo, and I saw that he was still breathing. And as soon as I come over the radio to say that he's still alive and he's wounded, it's just, that was it. Like, everybody just snapped into action. It was flawless. And as we're doing that, I hear the radio come over for the medevac to come in, or the casevac. Literally just everything just seemed to be working out perfect. I mean, it was such a shitty situation to see how it just, all that training paid off, and it saved his life 100%.
You're listening to the ATO Bridging the Divide podcast, brought to you by the Assist the Officer Foundation. Since 1999, the ATO has given assistance to the first responder community, and now we want to give a platform to hear their incredible stories. We also want to hear the stories of the many people that support us. Our community is small, but it is strong. We have differences. We don't always agree, and we all make mistakes. But together we can grow, we can heal, and we can learn from those mistakes. And together we can bridge the divide. Welcome back, ATO listeners. Before I welcome on today's guest, I'd like to give a mention to a huge loss to the Dallas Police Department. This past week, we lost one of our own. He got COVID and he passed away last Saturday. His badge 7476, Christopher Gibson. He was my classmate, and he was one of Dallas's finest, and also, no doubt, Best of the Blue 252. You're going to be missed, Chris. Before I welcome on today's guest, I want to give a quick intro. Although it was believed their roots began in World War II, called Underwater Demolition Team, the Navy SEALs were officially introduced in 1962 as President John F. Kennedy announced his intention to spend over $100 million to strengthen U.S. Special Forces. As conflicts in Southeast Asia also ramped up unconventional warfare, it was clear that that type of warfare was very needed. The SEALs were used in high-profile missions such as Operation Phoenix, the invasion of Grenada, during the Iran-Iraq War, the Persian Gulf War, the 1993 Somalia intervention, and the freighter ship Alabama, to name a few. But one mission on the morning of May 2nd, 2011, Operation Neptune Spear, found the team concluding a decade-long hunt for the most wanted person in U.S. history. Today's guest was a part of that mission. Growing up in small-town Lumberton, Texas, our guest knew early he wanted to join the Navy, but he didn't want to just join the Navy. He wanted to become a Navy SEAL. He did just that, graduating Class 246. He completed budge training and afterwards became a SEAL. In 2006, he became exposed to a new form of training with military canines being used in special ops that changed the course of his career and also his life. Today, I want to welcome on very special guest, Will Chesney. Will, the stage is yours.
All right. Thanks for the introduction. Appreciate you having me.
Thanks for coming on, Will.
Yeah. Sorry to hear about your classmate.
Thank you. Yeah, he was a gentle giant. He's just played football at Grambling, just a hulk of a man, and yeah, he'll definitely be missed. All right, you ready to dive into this?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Will, when did you decide to get out of Lumberton, Texas, and join the SEALs?
I decided in high school, for sure. I grew up in a trailer park in southeast Texas, and there wasn't much going on in the trailer park. I didn't love school. I was not a very good student. I just wanted to serve my country. I wanted to get out of the trailer park, and being a SEAL just seemed pretty like it was the job for me. So I decided definitely in high school, if not earlier. I knew I wanted to join the military, but I think it was in high school that I was like, all right, I'm going to be a SEAL. I love the water. I wanted to be special forces. I wanted to serve. Just made sense to me. I mean, I heard that SEAL training was some of the hardest training in the world. And I think I'm pretty tough sometimes. Sometimes I'm not, but I just wanted to see if I had it, if I had what it took to make it through the world's hardest military training. So that was what I had my heart set on.
I heard you read many books to get in the mindset and get in the heads of SEALs and the training. What type of books did you read?
Definitely read Rogue Warrior, if anybody, from Richard Marcinko.
Yep.
Who just passed not too long ago. So that was definitely one of the books I remember. And there was a few other ones. Dick Couch had a book, training something. I forget off the top of my head, but there was a few different books that I read through, and movies, of course, watching Navy SEALs with Charlie Sheen and Commando with Arnold. That got me in. Arnold, that was it. I got in a lot of trouble when I was a kid. I took a crayon, and after watching Commando, I colored myself with a crayon black and tried to camouflage myself up. I got my ass whooped for that one.
You ain't getting that off.
My mom was mad. Yeah, she was pretty upset.
At least you didn't try to carry around a log over your shoulder like he was doing in the beginning of that.
I'm sure I probably did try.
Did you or would you admit to jumping out of the back of a Jeep into the bay?
Oh yeah,
from a bridge.
Yeah, right.
Okay, that's awesome. It's the best part of the movie.
You got to try, right? Exactly. You got to try it.
Once you decided you wanted to go ahead and join the Navy and become a SEAL, you had to go tell your parents that's what you wanted to do. How'd that go?
It was weird. It was my mom's hard of hearing, so she's kind of hard to communicate with sometimes, and I don't know if she actually understood what I was going to go do, but she understood it was dangerous enough to where she didn't really want me to leave. But my dad, I'm sure he knew it was dangerous. He understood more, but he was all about it. Just knew I was dedicated. It was a dangerous job, but it was, it's serving my country and giving back. And sure, it's dangerous, but he was, I'm sure, proud, a little hesitant, but not as hesitant as my mom. She was, she wasn't on board as much as he was. But after a little bit of talking, I definitely convinced him, and it was not a problem. They knew. I think they could see how much I wanted to go, and there was nothing that was going to change my mind. And I was 17 when I joined, so they had to sign the paperwork. They had to sign the waiver for me to join, but it didn't really matter. I was going to turn 18 soon anyways, so once I was 18, it didn't matter. I was going, and I think they could see how much I wanted to go, and nothing was going to stop me.
I read your book. We're going to get into your book later on. We're going to talk about that and what it's about. But I read that once you join the Navy, the basic training is what it is, but you said it kind of didn't really prepare you for what was to come, entering buds and becoming a SEAL.
Fat in boot camp. I remember some dude, he's like, man, I was a little scared of you when you first showed up, and now you're just fat. I'm like, oh, cool. Thanks, man. We had some fun. We'd like do some wrestling around in boot camp, but it's like as far as working out, there was a lot of marching, I remember, and there wasn't we had like the SEAL motivator thing in the mornings we could go to sometimes, but it just wasn't. There was a lot of good food. Like donut for my shipmate was a thing they would say as you're going through the chow line, like all the fat kid food, and you could definitely eat as bad as you wanted to. There's plenty of dessert to eat.
My old partner was he was telling me about diet privates at the head, and he was a bigger guy. He still is. Shout out to John. That they would actually take off food from his tray and give it to the skinnier guys,
Yeah.
and he'd lay in his bunk, barely sleep because he was so hungry at night.
That's funny.
Yeah. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, you know,
you got to do what you got to do.
he clearly survived.
But yeah, there was some times where, like, if you wanted to do dive motivator training with the other instructors that were getting you prepared, that you couldn't go do the other physical training, which was weird to me. Like, come on, I'm trying to get ready for SEAL training, but it was fine. We had to, once you get through boot camp, you go to your A school, and I had plenty of time in A school to get ready, and it's on you at the end of the day
Yeah.
to be prepared. So,
Well, that's the thing. Self-motivation has got to, that's got to carry you, right?
for sure.
So, entering Buds, can you describe that training and how it started and how that kicked off?
I remember showing up at Bud's. It was great. It was very intimidating, but I came from a trailer park in Southeast Texas, and next thing you know, I'm on a beach in Coronado, California, living on the water. I mean, it was great. Bunch of solid guys, bunch of jokes, bunch of good people. Just got to get through the hard parts of training.
How many were you in your class when you started up?
It was probably a couple hundred.
Oh, wow.
We started off with NDOC. It's a month long. I think it was a month long before actually the 6 months of Bud start. So I think from the numbers that come to mind, which could be completely wrong, I think we started with 188, but I think we had more than that in NDOC. So it was just a couple hundred, and then we graduated with 22 original guys and 44 total. So yeah, if you're injured, they'll roll you back into the next class. If you're good, if you're not, then they'll just
Weed you out.
fire you.
Yeah.
But if you're a good dude and you have potential, they'll let you heal up, take care of your injuries, and roll into the next class. So we had 44 total, but 22 originals.
So that many people, did they get injured? They got injured?
Yeah, they got injured and
Buds?
rolled back into our class. So,
Wow.
yep.
I would imagine injuries is probably
Yeah,
pretty,
we had
pretty prevalent there.
Yeah, I mean, it's no joke. We had one guy's hip socket break in half on a run. Just like there's people that die during training. I mean, safety is number one, but it's some of the hardest training in the world. And you have guys that just don't make it and get hypothermia, or some guy just falls over in the chow line one day, just dies. You just never know.
Well, it's the toughest training for a reason, because you're creating the toughest weapons that our country has.
They make you want it. If you're supposed to lay down your life to save your teammate and get in a gunfight and not back down, you got to prove that you really are going to do that. At the end of the day, you can't just say it. You got to actually prove it.
Right.
In order to do that, you got to make it a little stressful.
Can you describe Hell Week and significance of that?
Hell Week is 5.5 days of buds. It's in first phase, so there's 3 phases in buds. First phase is all pretty much physical. It's just a beat down every day of different evolutions is what we call them. So it's like log PT or surf passage with boats, where they just make your life miserable and just beat you down with physical training and make you quit. They're just there to get in your head, and say it's 80% mental, and it really is. Like, they just beat you down. It's physical too, but they definitely try to get in your head a lot and make you quit. That's what they're there for. So I think it's the first 4 weeks. You learn things. You learn how to do the obstacle course. You learn a few things, but it's really there just to see if you have what it takes to make it past the first 4 weeks and the Hell Week. And then once you get past Hell Week, then they actually start. You have a little bit of rest time, and then they start training you, and you go into diving and land warfare, which is weapons and all that stuff. So you do your first 4 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever it is, and it's all beat down. And then you get through Hell Week, which is 5.5 days of no sleep. And they really, really beat you down. It was the best sleep I've ever gotten in my entire life.
After it was over.
After it was over.
Yeah.
By hands down. We did a 5.5 nautical mile ocean swim, and that was the second best sleep I ever got in third phase. But Hell Week, that was the best sleep I've ever gotten. I mean, by the end of it, you're so chafed and raw and beaten down. Like, you're walking around, and you just, I know we're on microphone, people can't see, but you're just trying to not let your clothes touch your body because everything is raw.
And chat.
It's terrible. I mean, they keep you cold, wet, and sandy the whole time, and it's nonstop. Like, your people are hallucinating towards the end. They're just there to make you quit. I mean, the first 3 days of Hell Week is pretty much when you get all your quitters, and the last couple of days is just keeping guys moving. And not that you can't quit, but most of the guys are just done within the first three days, and they just beat you down. And then the last couple of days are just keeping you moving, keeping you going for the rest of it.
It's just nonstop.
It's nonstop.
Have there been any guys that I can't do this? They quit and then they try again later. They allow that even?
100%.
Oh, really? Okay.
Mm-hmm. We definitely had some guys in my class that were previous quitters. Nothing against them. It's no joke. I mean, just the first, what we call breakout, is it's chaos. They create chaos. They make it rain with the fire trucks. They spray the water in the air, and they have explosions going off everywhere. The machine guns are going off, and they tell you to find, like, they stress teamwork and staying with your boat crew, but they make it to where it's impossible to stay with your people, so they mentally fuck you from the very beginning. And I remember very clearly, there's a lot of stuff that I forget these days, especially with the brain injury, but like, I lost my group of guys and I have an instructor yelling at me in my face, and I remember thinking, like, this is crazy. I lost my guy. I was panicking. I remember panicking and like, okay, this is all just a game. That's what they're there. I mean, we had guys quitting 100%, like, just nonstop in the very beginning. Just, you can't take that kind of stress. So they just make it complete chaos, and it's called breakout. And it doesn't stop from there. It's just, they just hit you with that big, you're sleeping in a tent, and next thing you know, it's chaos.
Was there any sort of phrase or anything specific that you had to tell yourself from day one all the way that in, like you said, oh, this is just a game?
Yeah.
Was there a technique that you used to enable you to push all the way through? Were you part of the 22?
Mm-hmm.
So you were part of the
I was
originals.
lucky. I didn't get any injuries or anything like that. And no phrase in specific. Just don't quit. What are you there for? Are you really there? Do you really want it? Or are you just there because, I don't know, you just got to really want it. So whatever phrase you had to tell yourself. And I remember there was one point we were sitting there eating for the first couple of days. And this is in Hell Week. You run down the beach. I mean, I forget how many miles it is. It's crazy. You carry the boats on your head one way all the way down like 8 to 10 miles. I forget exactly. And then you stay a couple days there, and you got to run back with the logs or something. And anyways, we were down we did our run down to the area we were at, and it was an evolution. And I remember we got there, and we're sitting there right by the water, and we're sitting there eating an MRE, and we had made it, and it wasn't that bad. It was a nice sunny day. It was warm. I was getting to eat, and just got through that kick in the nuts evolution. And I just remember sitting there eating, and it was nice and pretty comfy. And just hearing the bell ring and ring and ring. And I'm like, why are people quitting right now? I was like, we're getting to eat. And we're getting to chill. So it's just, I don't know. Just, you got to find those things. But when I'm in the water getting surf tortured and I'm freezing and they're telling you to spread your legs so you get hyperthermia and you get as cold as possible. And you're sitting there like, I don't care. Like, no, I'm not doing this. And you're just having these waves crash over you in the middle of the night in the ocean. I'm like, yeah, I can see why people can quit there. So that was when I had to tell myself, just go into my happy place or whatever. Think happy thoughts. Right. Do whatever. It'll pass. They can't keep you in here forever. Or you're just, right. It's either this or you're just going to die eventually. So it's fine. But as long as you don't quit, whatever you have to tell yourself, just not to quit.
So I have a question. Well, I guess just curiosity. So as you find yourself, not to jump forward, but just to look at this in perspective. So you go through this training, and you've had to find your happy place, I guess, like Happy Gilmore. What was that movie he was on? Where he's found it? But
that's exactly it.
But you find yourself keeping your mind occupied with other things. But have you ever, throughout your career, or has anybody else ever talked to you in the same line of work where you guys are in battle or whatever it may be, mission specific, that it becomes so hellish that you guys are able to revert to the utter chaos, and you think of that like, hey, I've been through something like this similar already? Or is it, once it's ingrained in you in specifics, like, hey, you've already been through this, you've been through Hell Week, you've been through all the training, which is a continuous beat down, at that point it just becomes part of you, right? So I mean, is there something where you like think back and you're like, I've I've already done this, or is that just something where you've been through this now and this is just a past and it's just part of your body, it's ingrained in you, and that's your force multiplier to keep moving through whatever it is?
I mean, you definitely know that you can take whatever they throw at you. I mean, it gets worse, but in training, you're just there to prove to yourself and everybody else that you have what it takes to be able to make it to the team. But once you're on the team, it is definitely miserable just sitting around in the cold or whatever you have to suck up to be there, but you're actually working. You're actually there getting rid of bad people, so it makes it completely worth it with the people that you love and care about and that have proven themselves as well. So it sucks during training, but it's just kind of, like you said, puts it in your mind that I can take pretty much whatever. I know I'm going to die before I let anything bad happen to my friends. And you have already proven that you can take it. Like, you've already been through Hell Week. Like, I know I can push my body to the limit, and I'm not much past that. I'm just going to die anyway. So it's like, yeah, I can push it to the limit. And
yeah, it's almost like it exploits your weaknesses, but it exemplifies, your psychological power, I guess, to overcome what most people would be extreme discomforts. But eventually, you're just
not much farther than that.
It becomes a discomfort, and you're just
going
like,
to shut down.
I've done it.
Yeah.
So you've already been pushed to that brink.
Yeah.
So you've already been there. So now you're off the cliff and you're moving forward with whatever you do.
It's kind of eye-opening to see what your body can take, because you wouldn't think that you can do that for 5.5 days of like nonstop beat down, and you're literally a hamburger by the end of it. They're so raw and chafed and mentally not there that you just know you can push your body to the brink of death. And like, yeah, cool. And then now we're here to do a real job. This isn't training anymore. Like, my buddy's life and my life is on the line. Like, this is no doubt I'll go to the end.
Yeah, it's just a testament to the power of your mind and your will.
Seriously.
No pun intended.
Can you describe the significance of the bell? You've mentioned that a couple of times. Can you let the listener know what that is?
Yeah, in order to quit in BUD/S, we carry around a bell everywhere. The instructors carry around a bell, and all you have to do is ring the bell 3 times, and you can quit at any time, no matter what. They actually encourage it.
Of course they do.
I bet. So were there people that you saw ringing the bell that you would have never thought?
100%. I mean, they had guys that graduated that is like, that guy will never be a SEAL. Like, just doesn't look like it. And you have guys that are just athletes that are college swimmers or whatever. They look like Arnold, and you're like, oh yeah, that guy, look at him, he's going to make it. And you put him in a weird situation you tie your hands and feet together, fill your face mask up with water. It's funny how some guys will just panic. You never know. And then there were some guys that were in the class like, yeah, he's going to do well. They'd hung out with SEALs before, and they were tough, good dudes. And all of a sudden they're into some water evolution. They can't handle it, and they're gone. You're hanging out with them in the morning, and then after the evolution, you never see them again.
Will, were you born physically gifted?
I was not. No, I wouldn't say that. I'm pretty comfortable in the water, so I'm happy with that.
Did you grow up around the water?
I did not. I just happened to be I'm a slow swimmer. That was one of my things that got me in BUD/S was the swim. You have to do 2-mile timed ocean swims, and I was a pretty slow, not the most physical. I was not a very great athlete. I mean, we had some great athletes in the class, but middle of the road, let's just say middle of the pack. But I was very comfortable. So we have this 50-meter underwater swim. You jump in the pool, can't kick off. You have to do a front flip, start swimming 25. Once you get to the other end, you can kick off, and then you just got to make it back. As long as you touch the wall, I mean, even if you don't touch the wall and you pass out, you pretty much pass, because you've proven that, like, hey, I'm going to push it until I pass out and die. So it's okay, you pass. But I was so slow that it was really it's getting to me mentally, because I had bought this thing to strengthen my lungs, and I was working on my breath hold. I'm pretty sure I had one of the longest breath holds in the class. And even after I got done with the swim, I did it. When my instructor pulled me up, he's like, "You are the slowest motherfucker I have ever seen." I'm like, "Hey, did I pass? I worked on that breath hold." I just knew my weaknesses, and I just wasn't a very gifted swimmer. I mean, running, people would get mad at me because I had a big ass. And I remember one of my teammates telling me, he's like, "Did I see? Like, I don't know how you run so fast." He's like, "I get so mad at you, I want to punch you in the face because I see your big ass just beating me on every one of these runs." I'm like, well, at least I got that going for me, because the swims are a little slower, but just ended up working out. I had a bad swim buddy in the beginning, and we did not get along, and then ended up getting a good swim buddy, and we worked together really well to just learn, and got faster and learned how to swim straighter and in a straight line. Because you're out in the middle of the ocean, if you're swimming diagonally, you're gonna just add more time. But we just eventually learned how to adapt, and times got faster and ended up overcoming it. So that was my weakness. I had to just learn how to. Some guys it might be the O course, some guys it might be the run. Mine was the swim, and everything else I just made up for. Is like, okay, it's run day. I can relax a little bit. I know I can get this. But on swim days, it was like, here we go, an hour of pain. Yeah.
Speaking of the water, I read this in your book. Can you explain what drown proofing is? That sounds like the definition of hell.
Drown proofing is great for me. It was terrible for some guys. We lost, like I said, one of the dudes that I thought would make it. He was awesome athlete, awesome person, and he just couldn't do it. If it was drown proofing and the face mask stuff, but drown proofing was, they tie your hands behind your back and your feet together, and they throw you into the pretty deep end of the pool, and you just have to stay calm and learn how to sink while exhaling, and then kick off the bottom and take your breath when you get to the top. And you have to do that for a long period of time. I forget exactly what the evolution was, but they make you do it for a long time, and then you have to swim. So you have your feet tied together and your hands tied behind your back. You learn how to pick up a mask off the bottom of the pool. You have to swim to the side. You have to do a front flip or a back flip or whatever it is, and you have to do these certain tests, and the whole time you just have to stay comfortable. That was fairly easy for me. Don't get me wrong, it's intimidating, but I would much rather you tie my hands and feet together and kick me in the pool than do another 2-mile ocean swim. Just, an hour and a half of pain of kicking, and those fins are hurting your ankles and your hip flexors, and just not fun. I'd much rather do the staying cool and calm and collected in the water.
What was that water was the water temperature?
Oh, it's cold. They keep it cold.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Of course. They keep it cold all the time. Cold, wet, and sandy. All the time.
Ugh.
Just quit. That's all they want you to do.
Hot tub over there by the bell. Though.
Oh, dude.
This could all go away.
Yeah, no, seriously.
All the instructors in the hot tub.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
One of the worst.
The martini.
One of the worst things, was they'll do that to you all the time. Like, oh, it's on. We'll give you some pizza or whatever they have. Donuts will give you food. You get to go to sleep. Come on.
I bet they would, too.
Oh, yeah, 100%. They weren't lying. 100%.
Hook you up with a big
The instructors
cheeseburger.
would have their donuts or whatever they had, and like, come on, just come ring the bell, and we'll.
Cup of coffee and.
There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong. It's not for everybody. Just come over here. Just ring the bell. You don't want to be here anymore. This sucks. We'll give you pizza and you get a hot shower, and you get to go sleep. They love it.
No drown proof.
I mean,
it's like literally like a Satan sitting on one shoulder.
Oh, I'll tell you the story here in a second. Was probably one of the worst sadistic. So everybody, it's like a bunch of us, a bunch of law enforcement or a bunch of military just hanging out. We all have the same kind of attitude, and everybody thinks they're a comedian. Everybody's got jokes. It's all fun and games. So they just make it as fun as possible. They got to be there doing the training, and so if you're out there having to do it, might as well make it somewhat fun. And
the monotony in doing that over and over again.
Right. So they come up with their own jokes, and they come up with their own sadistic ways to try to make you quit. That's literally what they're there for. How can I make the most people quit today? So somebody had the great idea. Like I said, when we did Hell Week, you have Breakout, which was chaos. Actually, like I said, that was the mental part. The physical part wasn't that big. It sucked. You had to crawl through. We ended up staying in tents on the beach, and we'd have to piss off the berm into this water that we had to get in later, and it was just terrible, and they're beating you down, and it was just awful. But that was chaos, and it was more of like a mental thing when you lose all your people and you think like, I can't do this. This is just the beginning, and like quit right now, because this is how it's going to be the whole time. So you get a couple of hours of sleep during Hell Week, and I think it's 2-2-hour blocks, and those were the worst. So they let you, you're getting your ass kicked for a day, 2 days, however long you're into it. And that's the worst in the beginning. They just nonstop beating you to where your whole body's going to turn to raw hamburger almost. And they give you warm clothes, and they give you a nice meal, and they put you back in that same tent and let you sleep for just a couple of hours, just enough to where you're nice and comfy and warm. And then when they wake you up the second time, they don't scream at you and get your adrenaline going. They just, hey, wake up. everybody come wake up. How comfy are you? Like, you're pretty warm, good. Everybody's nice and warm and comfy. Like, just go stand up on the berm, please. Like really nice and like not screaming at all, keeping everybody all happy. Like, who is? Just please yell at me to get my blood flowing. But no, they're like, hey, please go stand on the berm and just everybody wave bye to the sun. Just wave bye. And it's nice and warm. So you sat there and everybody's waving to the sun, and as it gets colder and colder, and they're like, hey, go sit out in the ocean, or go walk out towards the ocean. Not yelling. And then that was the only time, I think, in the whole class when they say take seats. So you go walk out into the ocean. Everybody locks arms. And they say take seats. And that's when you go from nice and warm, a little bit of sleep, to get in that cold San Diego water. And that was, I think, the only time that nobody listened when they said take seats. And everybody stood there. And then they got mad. They're like, take seats or you're going to pay for it. And that was one of the worst times of buds. I can really remember that. Just standing there waving at the sun, being all nice and warm, and they're like, "All right."
Oh man, what a mental.
Yeah. You know the instructors, they just sit around thinking of ways to crack themselves up and laugh their ass.
Oh yeah, they do skits. So they'll
just rehearsing it.
They'll make you get up there and have all the students go through skits and tell jokes and different things to keep themselves entertained. But it's great. It's for a reason. It's for a reason. I made the best friends I've ever made. I mean, even when I got to my team, I have my best friends from buds that are not, I guess, more important, but they're just that bond from going through all that is just my core group of friends is solid right there. Like, you build a bond going through all that pain and suffering, and
you literally left your soul with those people. Literally,
they make you earn it.
You're not even yourself anymore. You just left your entire body with these individuals. You can never break that bond.
You push it to the limit for sure.
Good God.
When you were at the end, you wrapped up for graduation. Can you explain how that was and how that feeling was getting through that hell?
It was. I don't have any kids yet. I'm not married, but it was the most important day. I mean, the Bin Laden thing was a pretty big deal. Don't get me wrong.
We're gonna get into that.
Yeah. That was one of the most important days of my life. I mean, graduating high school didn't mean nothing. The most important day, for sure.
Is it true they take that trident and stamp it on your chest?
They can, if you want. They don't make you do anything, but
yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty important day.
Yeah.
There's tradition that goes into the Navy and military and SEALs, and
that's cool.
If you want to participate, you can.
Is that where you got that scar right between your eyes?
Yeah, right. What was worse?
Started your own tradition?
Yeah, the grenade or that, right?
Yeah, or that.
Yeah, what do you attribute growing up to get you through that?
Great family, I guess. My dad and grandparents and mom, just being a decent person. I mean, nobody's perfect. We all have our flaws. But I definitely learned a lot from the people that raised me, just to be don't quit. Don't give up on the things that you really want. Just do your best. Just help other people and just be a good person as much as you can. Like I said, we all make mistakes and we all go through bad times, but that's it. I got lucky with a good family.
Moving forward to graduating to 2006, you were introduced to a new type of training in the military. Can you describe that with the working dogs?
Yeah, we were on a training trip. I was at SEAL Team 4, and we were doing some urban movement, and somebody had come from a different team, another handler, and he said he was going to show us a dog demonstration. No idea. I'd never seen a working dog before in my life, not even probably hunting. Just had my own personal dogs growing up. It was cool. It was a really great. It was a short, simple demonstration. A guy in a bite suit. I think he had one of us. It was one of us in a bite suit, and all he did was just go out in the field and run. The handler let the dog go and just shows how he can apprehend him. And it was cool to see. It was a very basic demonstration of a guy in a suit take off running, lets the dog go. Dog hits him. He falls over. Everybody laughs because it's funny watching one of the guys eat shit. And it seemed like a lot at the time, but it really wasn't. Like, looking back now after going through a bunch of dog training, it was just a pretty basic, simple dog demonstration, but it was very eye-opening. It was cool to see. I was pretty new at the time still, and really wasn't really sure what the head shed thought about it or how they would be applied real world. But as I progressed throughout my career, I definitely saw it, especially when I showed up at Dev Group and saw it real world. It was very eye-opening, just the amount of lives that were saved. When you're not being utilized as a dog handler, you're basically babysitting a dog while everybody else has fun clearing and doing the cool guy stuff. So not a lot of guys want to be a dog handler, but on my first deployment, I saw, I mean, there's a saying in the book. I remember being in the team room and somebody's like, hey, raise your hand if a dog's ever saved your life. And everybody's hand went up. Those dogs are just legit. And I saw that on my first deployment. And I'd been pretty lucky through my career. I'd gone through comm school as a new guy. And a lot of guys don't want comm school. It's a pain in the ass to fill everybody's radio 5 minutes before the mission starts. And you're just, anyways, it's not the best school to go to, but getting that school, getting sniper and a few other schools makes myself more valuable. And that was very eye-opening I wanted to go on every mission. And I learned that if I made myself as valuable as possible, I'm not going to be stuck back home. I'm going to go on every mission, and that's what I'm there to do.
So up to that point, what would you consider your specialty? I know eventually it ended up being the canine handling, but you got your CQB, your sniper, all your warfare specialties. What did you consider yourself best at before being the dog handler?
As a new guy, I was a comms guy, which is a great school to go to. I mean,
can you describe that a little bit?
You're just making everybody's radio good to go, and you're doing communications back to base or whatever is important. So it's a very, very important job, especially as a new guy. But it's also a pain in the ass because everybody's radio seems to drop or mess up right before the mission. So you're running around as a new guy, you can't mess anything up, and you get a lot of responsibility on your shoulders. But it was great. So you had that school, and then I got sniper school, and then I got JTAC school, which is talking to airplanes, dropping bombs.
Oh, cool.
And once you have those schools, you're pretty valuable.
Like, and that school's a hard one to get.
It's not easy. I had to kick and scream for sniper school. That was not the easiest one for me to get. Like, I really had to push for that. And other than that, like what medic, like I didn't get that, but it was, you just make yourself as valuable as possible if you want to go on every mission. And that's what I did. And I kind of accidentally happened by me being a new guy getting comm school and then me fighting for the other schools. I was like, oh, this is eye-opening. If I make myself valuable, I won't miss out on the good stuff. So then once I get to Dev Group, I mean, CQB is everybody's specialty at Dev Group. It's your bread and butter. Like, if you're not good at it, you go away. And it's hard to keep up with the world's best, literally the world's best. I'm like, I think I'm somebody. You're fucking nobody when you show up there. So you got to make yourself valuable or you're going to go away.
Yeah, I remember one time you telling me that you were kind of almost not getting cocky because it's really not within your personality, but within yourself, getting a little bold, a little brave, like, man, I got this. And you show up and you're like, oh, I'll sit back down.
Yeah.
Going up against some of those
100%
phenomenal CQB guys.
Going to get through the training and selection to get to Dev Group, you shoot a lot. The most I've ever shot in my life. And I was top of the class. I felt pretty good. I was like, yeah, I've been shooting pretty hard, and I show up in my team, and I'm like, all right, let's see what everybody's got. And I'm like, I'm just gonna win this. I'm just gonna win this just so the guys know who I am, and it's fine. It's no big deal. Here's my ego. Everybody look at it, and I got crushed day one, and I'm like, okay, I'll shut up. When you show up to the team, it's funny, as a new guy, they're like, hey, introduce yourself, and you start introducing yourself, everybody yells at you, shut the fuck up. And that was
that sounds familiar.
Yeah. You guys probably know that deal. So that was basically another way of like, all right, I'm going to show how good of a shooter I am, and I get beat, and it's like, basically like, you're nobody. There's always somebody better than you, no matter how good you think you are. There's always somebody better.
You mentioned something, ego, good or bad?
No, it's eye-opening sometimes. Didn't really see it. My ego got out of control there for a long time. And it's always good to be put in your place, for sure.
Do you think it has a place?
Definitely. It's probably saved my life, and I was at the top of the food chain. And to get there, you have to think you're somebody. And I definitely did, but it can go bad real quick because your ego can get out of control, and it for sure got out of control with me.
What about now?
No, I try to do things that put me in my place, for sure, because I remember who I thought I was, And I remember the fall of that ego getting crushed, and I don't ever want that to happen again. So I put myself, or I try to put myself in situations where my ego gets put in check, whether that's going to jiu-jitsu and getting choked out, or going to a range full of really good shooters and getting put in my place again. There's always somebody better than you. So I try to put myself in those situations a little more often so my ego doesn't get out of control.
Speaking of the K9, we're going to talk about the K9, Cairo. Can you describe when you first met him? What was that like?
Yeah, we got back from a deployment, and I was supposed to get a dog named Falco. Right before that deployment ended, he ended up getting shot, saving us. Two guys hiding in an ambush. Falco bit one guy, the other guy shot him. Falco was supposed to be my dog on them returning home from that deployment. He obviously didn't make it. So when we got home, there was a whole group of new dogs. I forget exactly how many, maybe 6 to 10. And I was no clue what the dog world. I mean, I just seen what the dogs can do for us on the deployment. And I was like, okay, this is a valuable. I need to make myself more valuable. I got to keep up with all these guys. If not, I'm going to go away. So I love dogs. This job seems pretty cool. And I'm not miss out on submissions if I'm a dog handler. But I really had no idea what I was getting myself into, and I definitely learned pretty quick. I learned a lot of life skills. I'm a pretty quiet guy, so having to step out of my comfort zone to talk to a dog, and I remember being there like, "Hey, good boy," and the guy's like, "Hey, that ain't gonna fly. You need to put some enthusiasm behind that, dude." So being a SEAL and everybody makes fun of everybody, you're good boy, good boy.
Oh.
I'm a SEAL. Nobody give me any shit to go like, I don't care anymore. This dog has to save my life. I'll sound like a 13-year-old little girl, and whatever. To communicate with a dog, you have to communicate with a thing that doesn't speak your language. So you
baby
can't
talk.
Yeah, you got to do whatever it takes. And so I definitely grew as a person, learning, stepping out of my comfort zone. And who gives a shit? Put that ego aside. Like, that dog's going to save your life or your friend's life.
It's like getting in that cold water for the first time. You got to raise that voice and
Yep. You got to
get it over
do
with
whatever
now, boys. Go ahead and make fun of me.
Yep. You just got to put your ego aside and do what you got to do.
In your book, No Ordinary Dog, what a great book. I mean, I can't say anything bad about it. I mean, I was just, first I'll admit it's a tearjerker, but you do an excellent job in explaining, the process of these dogs, of how they're selected, what they're selected for, and then the not necessarily the in-depth training piece, but just the tiers of training that these animals have to go through and accomplish to, much like y'all, moving up into the a tier 1 special forces team. And it's incredible just to hear the story of how they're selected, number 1, and 2, what you guys look for in them, and then they may not even make the selection process after you have a bunch of them come through the selection process, much like y'all. It's just, it's incredible. You did an excellent job explaining that whole entire process.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very happy with how it turned out. It's like a Navy SEAL Marley and Me, but I can't take all the credit. I shout out to my ghost starter, Joe. He definitely earned his paycheck on helping me put together Cairo's story, and it's an honor to not only tell Cairo's story and a big piece of history, but just to kind of bring attention. Like you said, people have no idea. I had no idea, and I was in the military, and I mean, even with law enforcement canines, just the amount of training and the value that the dogs bring to the table, and how much it takes to. I was just watching a video the other day of a dog that just probably didn't have good training, and he was not engaging the suspect, and just how much it takes to have that confidence in your dog to where like, this is a live animal that you need to go into a war zone and save your life by engaging somebody and biting somebody and around gunfight and stay in the fight. And I remember on my first deployment, it's like, I don't know if he's put in hours and hours and countless hours of training, and you still don't know how he's gonna react. It's a live animal. You don't know what's gonna happen. So it takes a lot of time and dedication and everything that goes into it. So it's great to be able to kind of open people's eyes to, like, it's just not a dog that we went to the pound and got, or we bought him and just put in a little bit of training. It's like just like you said with us on our selection, I had to go through hell week, and it was pushing my body to the verge of death. That's just us. And then now you have a dog that has to go into the same kind of war situations that you're going into. It's quite the process of going through their selection training, my selection and training, their selection and training, grouping everybody together, continuing the training, and then having them prove that you can go into a war zone and do the job, and then them proving that they're going to do their job too. It's
yeah, I think you hit that on the head too. Just most people don't put any thought into it because they're not tied to that animal, right? So you look at an animal, for instance, like our explosive detection dogs. You know, people think that you just walk a dog on a leash, you walk it down there, it finds an odor, and it sits down, and it's great, and it finalizes, and that's the end of it, right? But not to compare one to the other, but just the working animal itself, nobody realizes that all of the intricacies that go into that animal, and not only that, but you, the handler, man, it reshapes you, it trains you.
It does.
And the dog reacts off you, it reacts off an environment, so it's just so crazy just thinking about all the intricacies that go into just training the animal, not only physically but emotionally, and then how you have to train yourself. And I mean, you think of your environment. If you're part of the entry team, your environment is what you see, right? It's 360 degrees. Yours is the same, though you have people covering you. Yours is the same, but now your responsibility is this animal that's in front of you as well. So now your world has just become even larger of responsibility. Not to minimize anyone else's role, but it's just people just don't think about all the work and effort that goes into one of these animals.
You can't blame them because
yeah.
until you're in
How
that
would you know
situation,
it?
right? How would you know it? Even me being in the military, I think I didn't even understand.
Very impressive. So,
and I learned a lot. Like I said earlier, we learned about stepping out of my comfort zone and putting your ego aside. That was a big lesson learned from the dog training, and then looking yourself from a different perspective, like if I'm being an asshole and I'm just in a bad mood and the emotions run up and down the leash is a real saying. Yeah. If I'm having a bad day and he's not listening and I'm just making it worse, it takes so much training to go into him that I'm taking away from that. By just one day of me being upset because something's going wrong at home, that goes down the leash to him, and then all those weeks or months of training that we put in, it takes one day to backpedal, and next thing you know, I just needed to look at myself. Like, am I doing productive training? Do I need to take a step back? And it's hard to be like, look, I'm having a bad day. I am just not being productive. Like, I need to just take 5 minutes, or I need to take the whole day off and put my ego aside again. And we're there to do an important job, but it's like, hey, look at yourself from a different perspective. Like, what are you doing? Like, I'm making this worse. You think like I need to be here to train, but I'm being an asshole. You're ruining that dog. You're not there just because you think I'm going to put in these hours right now because I'm a SEAL and this is important. We're going to life or death situations. Like, you need to look at yourself from a different perspective. Like, hey man, either having your friend do that or you doing that yourself, which is a very hard thing to do. It's like one of the most valuable things I learned is to just look at yourself. Like, are you being productive, or are you just making things worse?
And you have to possess that selflessness, because that dog is not only yours, but it's there for everybody.
Yeah.
It's there to save the lives of more than just you. It's more about you and that animal. I mean, so your selflessness that has to go into that as well is just incredible. So, but anyway, sorry, I rolled off.
Cairo got injured. He got shot. Can you describe that and what his injuries were and the recovery afterwards?
Yeah, on one of the deployments that me and Cairo were on, I said we were supposed to get that dog named Falco. Falco was a great dog. Had a little bit of issues with him in the beginning with some bark and hold stuff that was trained into him, but once he got a couple of bites and he was seasoned, he turned into a monster. And unfortunately, he sacrificed his life for us. But getting Cairo on one of the deployments, it was almost a situation just like Falco's. Two guys, they did this quite often. Two guys fled. We chased them. They ended up we work at night, so you're on night vision. It's kind of hard to see somebody on night vision sometimes if you can blend in somewhat well. So they'll try to just set up on ambushes on us, and that's when the dogs come in handy. Two guys fled. We chased them down. They were hiding from us. Sent the dog out. They weren't listening. We tried to do their call-outs, escalation of force, the normal stuff. They're not listening, obviously, because they're turds. So send the dog in to find them. I sent Cairo in, In this situation, it was 2 guys on a moped. It was 4 guys on 2 mopeds. One helicopter, they split. The 2 mopeds split. One helicopter went after one group, we went after the other group. The 2 guys went into a tree line in the middle of nowhere. We landed the helicopters, made our way up to the tree line. Behind this, there happened to be this brick wall. And we took cover behind the brick wall, tried to call them out. They weren't listening. Ended up sending Cairo in where he could best use his nose to catch wind and their odor. So I'm watching him, and since it was a pretty thick tree line, I lost visual of him, and I'm just trying to make my way down the line of guys behind cover and trying to pick up his silhouette again, or strobe. And I eventually hear AK gunshots, and those sound significantly different than our gunshots. So I knew that he had probably engaged one of the guys and was getting shot at or shot. So I immediately start trying to recall him, and Cairo listened really well. I was very lucky to have such a great listening dog, and I just knew after a certain amount of time of him not recalling that something was wrong, because I knew we had done so much training together that his recall was on point. So after, it seemed like eternity, but 30 seconds, a minute and a half of time going by, and then he's not coming back, I just knew he was shot or he was dead. I saw that my guys up on the line were shooting, so they were taking care of business. I didn't need to go up there, so my main priority was, they did not need me, was to just keep recalling Cairo. And eventually I did see him. Since there was a brick wall, he was having trouble. He had been shot through his chest and his leg, and he was having trouble, I guess, jumping back over the wall, obviously because he was shot in his leg. He had to find a break in the wall, I'm assuming, at some point, and he made his way all the way back. Even though he was shot through his leg and his chest, he made his way all the way wherever he found a break in the wall, all the way around the far side, and he was coming back to me, and it's maybe 20 yards, 30 yards away, and I just see him collapse. And if you know anything about Malinois or shepherds, they don't just collapse.
Yeah,
no, that's a bad sign. I immediately thought he was dead.
When y'all make contact with the enemy, you send the dog out, and I'm assuming you had done that many times
Mm-hmm.
prior. Was there any? I don't know. I can't imagine the feeling of you're not getting compliance. You're there's a gunfight brewing in the air. Everybody can sense it, and you're sending your partner out, kind of by himself to sniff out this threat. What does that feel like? As an operator, is that just your tool, and you're using your tool?
No, not at all. It was like my kid.
Yeah.
You grow that bond. It was one of the worst moments of my life when I saw him fall over. I thought he was dead. It's kind of weird. You compartmentalize and stuff, and that's no joke. They say it, even if your teammate gets shot in the doorway, you finish the gunfight first, because if you don't,
sure,
more people are just going to die.
Right.
So, and then when seeing him collapse like that, to compartmentalize and shut everything off was weird. I mean, it was like sending my kid to get shot. When I saw him die, I thought he was dead. I was like, okay, cool, he's done, and just move on to the firefight. And I just saw that there was plenty of guys up on the line. There was only 2 turds in there. It was a secluded tree line. Pretty easy to figure out that they did not need me up there. And I saw plenty of guys that were much better than me shooting at the bad guys. So I'm like, okay, you guys, what am I going to do? Run up there and supervise? But it was weird to see those emotions shut off. Okay, he's dead. It is what it is. And then just look at the gunfight. Gunfight's fine. And then look back at him and then run right over to him. And it's all kinds of emotions, I guess. Terrible. It was the worst moment of my life. And that's weird how I can just immediately shut that off. He's dead. It's cool to see, looking back on such a terrible situation. I know it's not a human, but to me, he was part of the team. He's part of the family. So it's cool to see such a bad situation. You train, the training that you put in is how you're going to act when it's real world, and just to see that all the training that we had put in and the countless hours paid off. Not only did I get over to him and start assessing him, but my teammates, guy knew he was on the line. He was a medic. I'm not needed. These turds are taken care of. He knew Cairo needed him. I didn't have to ask for help. He just kind of ran with it. The head shed, as soon as they heard, they were calling in the Casevac to come pick him up as I'm getting out his blowout kit, it was flawless. Like, I didn't have to say anything. He was there. Next thing you know, I don't even have his gear off yet. I made my way to Cairo, and I saw that he was still breathing. And as soon as I come over the radio to say that he's still alive, he's wounded, it's just, that was it. Like, everybody just snapped into action. He came back to help as I'm pulling out his. Cairo had his own blowout kit, his own medical kit, and I had my own. I pull out his, and he's there. I hand it to him as he's breaking out the stuff that he needs. I have his gear off just in time. I literally slipped Cairo's muzzle on just in time because he's sticking his hand deep into his chest, and Cairo tried to bite him, and that's not like Cairo, but he was obviously shot, and like, it was literally just in time. I had Cairo's. It was flawless. And as we're doing that, I hear the radio come over for the medevac to come in, or the casevac, and those helicopter pilots didn't have to come in for a dog either. So it's not just us. If those guys put it on the line too. We're in a gunfight. Wow. I mean, I know it's just a couple guys, and it's still in a gunfight. And those guys didn't care. It's a dog. Like, it's part of the team.
Teammate.
Yeah.
Sure.
So it was just flawless. Like, literally, just everything just seemed to be working out perfect. As he's getting him stabilized, I see the helicopter coming in. As it's landing, I'm picking him up. I mean, it was just such a shitty situation to see how it just.
But
all that training paid off.
Executed just flawlessly. And that's where all those hours of training
saved his life. 100%.
Now, when you were trying to recall him, is that on a e-collar?
It can be a beep. It can be whatever. Every dog's different, just like us. Every person's different.
What did Cairo respond to?
Beep is fine. Cairo would just do a verbal.
You didn't have to shock him very often.
I probably do. So there's, his titration level was pretty low, so I might give him a little buzz because he's on a live bite, and sometimes it's harder to get him off a live bite. But with him, I probably did he can't do a verbal too much, so I did the beat.
Sure.
And if that's not working, I give him a little bit of shock. Mm-hmm. But it's like tapping him on the neck. It's not like a blast. Right. Some dogs, they get shark eyes. I mean, literally, when I got dog bit, I've only been dog bit once, and it was a dog that I've been working with, and I love this dog, but he didn't have the switch like Cairo has, like where he didn't have as much of a switch. Like, he could be somewhat friendly, but I don't 100% trust you because you're a working Malinois. And when he bit me, I'm like, I know you enough to where I'm like, hey, his name is Yari. I'm like, Yari, Los. And I'm looking into his eyes as I'm pulling some back pressure. He had me by the knee, and I'm pulling back pressure on his harness. And I'm like, Yari, Los. And I'm like, I didn't want to mess up the training scenario, and it was my bad. It was my mess up. Totally my fault while I'm getting dog bit. And I'm like, I can just get him. Hey, man, it's me. Look at me. It's like, Los, it's me, buddy. Like, we work together all the time. And it was complete shark eyes. And not only did he let go of my knee, he readjusted and got my arm after that. So as soon as he let go of my knee and started latching onto my arm, and I saw those shark eyes, I'm like, you were completely out of it. So every dog's different. And some dogs might need a little bit more juice. There was one dog that we had to get rid of. We gave him to a police department because he would not recall. No matter what you did.
That's cool. Just give
the cops. Yeah, here. It's not going to work out.
Well, they have
the police.
Hey,
I like it.
Y'all have a little bit more, like, you might be able to get to him.
Yeah, like that video you saw. He releases the dog, and the suspect's right there. The dog just goes off.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I mean, y'all have a little bit. Maybe he has a little bit more of a chance to make it. If like sending him into the tree line wherever he's at, he's not coming back. He'll never see him again. But yeah. But eventually that was not going to work. We had lost so many dogs that way, and then they do recall. They were just getting shot. Like, we lost Falco, Cairo got shot. We've lost plenty of dogs that way. So if a dog's not coming back, period, it's just a matter of time. So we figured giving him to the police department, you got a little bit of a better chance, maybe? Sure. I don't know.
For the dog survivability. Not necessarily the citizens.
Oh, yeah, no, y'all took him no problem. Like, yeah, he's a seasoned monster of a dog. Like, yeah, you'll take him for sure.
What would you say, Will, not just that Cairo was your dog, but what made him different from others? You talk about Yari and how he had shark eyes and he just didn't respond the same, but it was very made clear in the book, as you described it, that Cairo was not, just like the title of the book, no ordinary dog. He was not an ordinary working dog, right? And what was different about him?
So we call it having the switch. You put their vest on, they turn the switch on, it's time to go to work. There's no petting him. It's complete work mode. You don't touch him. There's no playtime. He knows the deal. Not all the dogs can, when you take that vest off when you get back, turn that switch off. There's some dogs at the kennel that I didn't even open the door to feed. It was like, I slide your plate in, I don't break you, I don't trust you. Your handler and the people that know you are the people that break you. So not all dogs can turn it off. With Cairo, he was, y'all saw the pictures a little bit earlier with my buddy's kids on the couch after he was retired. Like, not all Malinois can
That's
do that
cool.
or
That's a
should do that.
special dog that has the switch.
And you just know, it's just like people. Everybody's different, man. Some people can turn it off more, and some people can't. And the dogs are the same way. And with Cairo, he was a great working dog. He was very low maintenance. He kept my life much easier. Much easier. I probably didn't deserve him, for sure. He's a hard-working dog. And not only that, but when he got home, he could just turn it off and be part of the family. You don't always get that.
Well, we want to move forward to a little-known operation called Operation Neptune Spear, but I don't want to rush it. So we're going to go ahead and end part 1, and then we're going to continue with a part 2 of the great, fierce Will Chesney with speak on the Bin Laden raid and the rest of Cairo and Will's career. You ready for that?
Sounds good.
All right.